In 7.2, we're going to start adding negatives to negatives. So this warm up is from what we did in the last lesson. -4 plus +4 is 0. That's an example of which property? The inverse property of addition. And I should guess property of addition. -4 plus 6, therefore, is +2. Right? If you're still struggling, right, you have 4 negatives and 6 positives. Right? This is plus +6. We don't write that positive symbol. And so it is +2. 4 plus -6, therefore, is -2, right? Because it's 4 positives and 6 negatives. So there's 2 extra negatives. Now, number 4, that's from first grade, 4 plus 6. That's +4 plus +6. You didn't say it that way in first grade, but the point of that is to show that that's +10. Because what we're doing today is number 5. So what's going to be the rule with -4 added to -6? Now there's no positive and negatives that cancel out. So when +4 plus +6 was 10, -4 plus -6 is -10. You just add them up. Right? If you owe $4 to one person and owe $6 to another, you owe a total of 10. So that's -10. Right? So if you owe $3 to one person, owe $5 to another, you owe a total of 8. You're -8. We're going to draw these again, right? So the first box, just to show you the difference. There's 5 negatives in the first box, 2 negatives in the second box, and so there's 7 negatives in the last box, -7. No canceling, no opposites. So this one is -5. First box, -6 in the last box, and so no canceling, you just add them up. You get -11. So this is -2 plus -4. Once again, right, we don't like to have a plus and a negative right next to each other, and you get -6. So -31 plus -3 is -34. You just add them up. You can add those in any order. Commutative property of addition, which says you can add things in any order, applies to negatives. So -5 plus -5 is -10, and -10 plus -10 is -20. -8 plus -8 times plus -8 is, well, is there a shortcut here? Yeah. 8 times 4 is 32. So this is -32. All right, so the identity property of addition, I think I mentioned it in the last lesson. Adding 0 will not change a number. So 148 plus 0 is 148. 0 plus -17, -17. Oh, by the way, no parentheses on the answer. These parentheses are there because of the plus and minus next to each other. Andrew had no money with him. He had 0. And he owed 49 to his friend Mike, and he owed 56 to his friend Gary. Write an expression. So that's the writing of the expression. So I need that. All right, it's asking for that. That's part of the answer. And determine how much money Andrew had. Well, he had less than 0 because he owes a bunch of people money. And I'm adding them up there, right? I'm not subtracting them like the last lesson. So I'm getting 105. He owes $105. He's -105. Football team lost 5 yards. They're -5 yards on their first play and lost 7 more. So we add another -7 on their next. How many total yards did they gain? Now notice I said that because if you say ask how many yards they lost, you would say +12. They lost, or you would say 12 probably. You would say I lost 12, but they didn't gain. They did the opposite of gaining. All right. So it's -12 yards. That's why it's asked that weird way. -7.9 plus -2. So we're doing it with decimals. Once again, we're adding. We're lining up our decimal points. 7.9 plus 2 is 9.9, but this is -9.9 because they're both negative. They just add them up. -15 plus -6 in 1900ths. Once again, 15. Notice I'm not writing the negatives as I'm adding these up on the side work, right? I'm just getting the calculation done. And so this is, but sometimes if I have a lot of calculating over here, I'll put the negative there first so I don't forget it. But it's negative 21 in 1900s. All right, so the commutative property, I mentioned this, right? You can switch the order of any addition problem and get the same answer. So negative 16 plus 12 and 12 plus negative 16, those are the same two numbers added in any order. So this one is negative 4 extra negatives, and this one is negative 4. The commutative property works whether it's a positive or a negative number. It doesn't matter. So 24 plus negative 11 is positive 13, right? Because I just did 24 minus 11 in my head. And negative 11 plus 24 is also positive 13. So notice the parentheses there, if you've been struggling with that, right? Are they only there because when you have this plus adding a negative right next to each other, also happens when you have a minus and a negative next to each other. So we're going to mix up the last two lessons. So some are from today, some are from the last lesson. Negative 3 plus 10. All right, so negative 3 plus 3 would be 0. So there's 7 extra positives there. You're canceling. Negative 3 plus negative 10 is negative 13. They're both negative. You just add them up. 27 plus negative 2 is positive 25. Negative 27 plus negative 2, you add them up, negative 29. We can add things in any order, commutative property. So I tend to add the negatives together and so this plus goes with that. So negative 3 plus negative 7 is negative 10. This plus goes with the 8, by the way. I add up the negatives first, then, because I can just add those, right? And then the negative 10 plus 8, you cancel the negatives and positives, and you get negative 2. But any order you do that should work if you do it correctly. So once again, those two add up to negative 9. 12 plus negative 9, positive 3. Okay, so now here I might do something different. Because I can do negative 7.5 plus 5 in my head and get negative 2.5. But let me just write that out. 7.5 minus 5 is 2.5. That's negative 2.5. So then I have negative 0.02, or negative 9 and 2/100ths. Did I say that correctly? Plus negative 2.5. So now they're all negative. Now I can add them up. So 9.02, 2.5, lining up your decimal points. And so this is negative 11 and 52/100ths, or negative 11.52. So let's practice. So negative 46 plus negative 45. I'm just going to do that honestly. They're both negative, so you add them up. And so you get negative 91. Again, you can add these in any order, but these two add up to negative 30. I can do that in my head. So that made this problem easier for me. So that's negative 48. Now negative 24 plus 39. All right, so now we're seeing how many extra positives we have there. We have 15 extra positives. Same thing, the next one is very similar. We have how many extra positives? We have 66 extra positives. This one, I'm going to add up the negatives. Negative 5 plus negative 12 is negative 17 plus 18. Oh, that's easy, positive 1. Right, there are certain orders, they all should get the same answer, but some are definitely easier than others. Right, negative 6 plus negative 5 points, negative 56 plus negative 5.6. So 56 plus 5.6, I think this is there to emphasize lining up your decimal points. So they just add up and you get negative 61 6/10. What property is that? That's not inverse. When you add 0 and it stays the same, that's identity. Right? That's the identity property. So two properties start with I. Right? Did I spell it right? Identity property of addition. All right. So when you add 0, the number stays the same. If I'm adding opposites, they add up to 0. Boy, those are similar. That's inverse. Yeah, and that's not inverse. That's the third property. So we have identity, inverse, and you can add things in any order. Both of these will be equal to the same answer, whatever it is, and that is commutative. Notice how I said that, commutative. There is no N in it. It's not a commune, it's a commute, as in commuting to work. Commutative property of addition. There was a commutative property of multiplication we talked about earlier in the year. Good luck on the homework.